I mean, we might argue
Great earrings. What are those, door knockers?
amongst ourselves,
Remind me to change my will.
but if you come for our family, hi, babe.
Hey, Mom.
Look at that hair, purple.
You're gonna get that smoke.
So hip-hop, girl.
Liddy. Liddy. You don't want that smoke.
Anyway, what were you saying about your tiny house with no electricity?
Yeah, we were saying that we have internet, though.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love when you want, wherever you want, however you want. And I am whoever you want. Actually, no, I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, I'm Brian Brushwood, and I assume that must have been a trailer for the new show called White Guilt. Am I right?
Yes. Thank you for playing that while I'm here. That was great.
That's the trailer for. That's the trailer for hashtag. They put a hashtag in the title. Hashtag Black AF from Kenya Barris, the creator of Blackish. It stars Barish and Rashida Jones. That's coming to Netflix on April 17th.
Of course,
so the pitch for this was, what if we made Blackish, but I starred in it with Rashida Jones and it was on Netflix? And Netflix said, great, we're buying that.
Pretty much.
Yes.
and of course, the voice you hear is YouTube's own Lamarr Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us, Lamarr.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's been 15 years, but I'm back. I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I remember when we used to do this show by mail with you. It was amazing.
Yes, yeah. And then we send our chess moves as well by mail.
on little index cards. Yeah.
My dearest Lamarr, though it has been many a fortnight since I have last written upon you.
Speaking of Fortnite, would you like to play?
Yes.
That was we played Fortnite because it took 2 weeks for everything to get back and forth to each other.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
The good old days are gone. It is now time to talk about cutting the cords, the fate of theaters, what we're going to be watching now that nothing is being made. And that's actually our first topic in the primary target. Deadline has an article about how animation production is continuing with creative teams working from home, actors recording voiceovers from home. In fact, Netflix just gave a series order to Angry Birds Summer Madness for premiering sometime in 2021. Disney, CBS, Nickelodeon all have their animation studios running. Warner Brothers Animation is in various stages. Fox-owned Bento Box, the folks who make Bob's Burgers, among others, they're hiring people right now. Family Guy is doing a remote score with musicians having to record their parts from home. Crews are using Zoom and Skype to do virtual table reads, to do edit sessions with the producer, quote unquote, in the room. Even so, some studios are talking about shifting to new episodes every 2 weeks instead of every 1 week. One speed bump is asynchronous cable connections with great downloads, but slow uploads. And the editors need to upload the stuff they're editing through the internet. The question I have, though, is given that all production, for the most part, in the United States and in a lot of countries is stopped down at the moment, by the end of the year, are all the new shows going to be animated?
Well, I think it'll take too long to get those out, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some new super low fidelity formats coming out that at a casual glance look polished enough, but take very little effort and time. Like this is the problem with animation is that it takes forever. Just ask the producers of Rick and Morty. But
they're still doing it. They're still doing it. And there is no... other than like late night television, we're going to talk about that a little later on, like production on Fargo, the high value production, live action stuff is not happening. So we are going to have a continuing animation timeline, even if it is a little slower, where we have zero production happening on live action, Brian. I think we're going to see it depends on how they time out the releases, but we're going to see animation arriving that is in a time when there will be no live action stuff arriving.
Well, let me kick it over to Lamarr, but specifically, I would love to know, what is your opinion on the fact that all of broadcast and high quality television has been teleported back to the internet of 10 years ago?
I'm like, welcome. We've been waiting for you.
Yeah, right.
This is great. Yeah, but it's an interesting question because I have a younger friend who does voiceover on a hit Cartoon Network show, and they're on a little hiatus right now. But I just talked to them today. They're literally about to go back to work, and it's going to be a mix of at home and in the studio. So yeah, like Tom was saying, they're still recording. I mean, animation also takes what, a year to come out, 9 to
Seems
12
to be
months. Yeah, so yeah, I can say about end of the year, early next year, there's gonna be a lot of animated shows or just a lot of reruns. Or Brian, what happens is we get back to reality TV being a hit because there's nothing else on. That's what I'm scared about, because I don't like reality TV at all. Sorry,
it's
Big Brother
unscripted television, as we called it.
Yes.
When I was involved in it. Unscripted television is cheap,
Oh, you were
fast, and
involved in
easy
it,
produced.
yeah.
Yeah. And here's the funny part is I feel like all that's happening is the veneer is being ripped away, and all of these capabilities that were always there, all of a sudden there's a reason to go for it. I remember that, I hope I'm not talking out of school, but when we did Hacking the System, there was a number of voiceovers that they were talking about flying me out to LA to do. And it's like, look, I understand you got a closet with foam on it, but I too have foam and a decent microphone. And so we ended up sort of working out this low-tech thing where there was a Skype connection between me and the producer, but I would record everything there, and she would say, "Oh, give me a take more like this, more like that," and the bulk of the voiceover audio on that series was recorded in my home studio. So if that capability was already there 5 years ago, I got to imagine that it's only gotten better now.
Absolutely, yeah. Home mics are, I mean, they're reasonably cheap. I mean, like the setup I have, I've been practicing some VO myself. I might be pretty good. I don't know. No, I'm not. But yeah, it's so easy to have a home system. I think what this has done, and we got to find a silver lining out of this whole virus thing, right? I think what this has done is exposed two things: the state, the lie that businesses say that you can't work from home. That's been exposed. You can completely work from home for a lot of these corporate jobs. And the other thing is that that things like this can't get done, like production can't continue, and we'll talk about movies in a little bit later. But I'm liking that the veil has been lifted to show that a lot of creative things can be done in people's houses. You don't have to be in a corporate office to be successful.
Well, I'm going to pull. We were going to talk about this in what to watch a little later on, but it seems like it fits in here. James Corden recorded a special primetime version of Late Late Show in his garage to air Monday, March 30th on CBS. Will Ferrell recorded sketches, and David Blaine performed magic. It ends with one entire Broadway company performing from their homes, so each person in their home performing together. The show hopes to raise money for the CDC Foundation and Feeding America, starting today, Monday, March 30th. Yeah, most of the late night television shows are back with full new episodes, even though they're done out of the hosts' houses. Full new episodes rather than mixes of some stuff recorded with best ofs. One of those is Andy Cohen. Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen is coming back after he has recovered from COVID-19. He was going to come back a couple weeks ago, but then he got sick. He is now better, and the actual Watch What Happens Live set is based on his apartment anyway. So he's going to be from his office, where he's like, it's going to look kind of like the set we have on Bravo. And so, like you said, Brian, like a bunch of these what were high tech setups are now making do with what we do right here with stuff out of your home.
Yeah, and not to get too specific, Tom, but it actually reminds me that's sort of a shocking echo of what you experienced as you took your production into your home, moving down to LA from the Bay Area, and you created a set that there were a number of people that never even knew that you weren't in the room with Ayaz and Sarah, because everything flowed together and Skype was good enough, and especially for the audio listeners or whatever, we're again, it's like maybe that's not 10 years ago, but that's certainly teleporting to 5 years ago.
More than, more than 6 years ago at this point. 7, yeah.
Can I be a little snooty here?
Oh, please.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cause all these people, I won't say all of them, but there's, a lot of these production people all thumb their nose up at YouTubers. I am one, and say all we do is low tech and it's not really entertaining. And now look at them. They're in their houses and they're doing literally what we do. on a daily basis, and they're going to try to make it work.
Well, and not only that, but they're changing their tune, because, of course, the tune for YouTubers and online creators of all stripes was, hey, it's the story that matters. The fidelity, yes, we'll never match that last 10% of that Hollywood chrome-like polish. We're not going to look like Avengers Endgame or whatever, but we're going to be able to tell the majority of the story that we have to tell just in a lo-fi scenario. Suddenly, Hollywood has changed its tune, but meanwhile, the price of working out of Hollywood is you have to live in Hollywood, which is very expensive and taxing in terms of time, effort, and energy to physically move together or whatever, which is part of why YouTube has been such an exciting environment over the last 10 years, is everybody's agile and moves quickly. And now we're kind of hearing some of that same song sung from
Lamarr, I think Brian was just trying to throw us under the bus about living irresponsibly. But
no. I'm just saying, you guys.
Yeah, he kind of said that. You heard that, right?
I heard that. Yeah.
Look, we can't all own 7 acres in Texas. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
no, but all kidding aside, it's a fair point. Like the idea of Lamarr and I buying 7 acres. I mean, not here. Maybe out, in the desert somewhere, past Palmdale or something. But yeah, it's you can buy 7 acres in a place where you can afford it, and then set up your shop and run it. You don't need to be as picky about location because of needing to be near things.
And speaking along those lines, really all you need is a good internet connection. And I hope I'm not pinching from a future story that we have on the lineup, but there's people are encountering for the first time the reason or the downside to asymmetrical internet connections, where 100 megabits down and 1 megabit up is not sufficient if what you want to do is be able to broadcast and reach.
No, you're pinching from what I said earlier, which is the animation folks, the editors, right? That asynchronous connection is what's slowing down animation. The visual productions, the high quality live action productions just can't do it at all because it's not safe to have people together. The animators can keep going, but some of those editors are like, well, wait a minute, I only have 20 megabits per second up. It's going to take quite a bit longer for me to upload my editing than it would have before, which brings me back around to where we started this conversation, which is there is going to be a gap. Will it be filled by, specials recorded out of their houses? Will it be filled by reality shows that rely on people in their houses? Will it be filled by animation? Lots of it's in the pipeline, so you can just kind of highlight it more. But like you say, it takes a long time to start up something new, so you can't really just suddenly ramp up on animation. What are we going to have in that gap?
I do have a guess, but I would love to hear Lamar's take first.
Well, I was just gonna bounce off yours, and now you put me on the spot.
Well, then I'll tell you what. I'll give mine first. Then, whatever it is, almost certainly we four cannot predict it. Like almost always, it's nature finds a way. It's that evolution. I mean, much like the COVID virus itself, it's going to come out of nowhere, and then once it's there, it's going to realize that there's a niche that's been waiting for it. I suspect it will be very efficient, by which I mean you can have an idea Wednesday night, and by Tuesday morning, you could have a finished product. Much like, South Park embraced that low fidelity storytelling architecture all the way back 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Geez, it's been a while. My guess is it'll be that next kind of South Park. And my guess is it will be funny, because funny is cheap and easy, as we saw on YouTube. And to be honest, Tom, I suspect it'll be some version of animated, because animated allows you to shift the perspective away from a simple talking head to a camera, which is something we've seen an awful lot of. We see it on the news, we see it on YouTube. It will be narrative, and it will be unexpected. Those are my predictions. Super helpful.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, so I was thinking kind of along your lines, like the storytelling is going to be very key, right? But how that looks, I can see podcasts and like this one, video really surging and taking off, because the people are going to be used to again getting that one-on-one perspective. So it may not be this exact form, but I definitely see storytelling is going to be huge. Again, people who are on YouTube are kind of already accustomed to doing that, so the professionals will have to figure out to navigate that, where they can pump out content quickly, but still keep that storytelling element and still feeling like it's personable, but also professional. So you're right. I think it's going to be something we haven't seen before, because I don't know what exists in that form yet.
I think we're going to see a huge celebration of the return of things to their studios, because that's going to be doesn't the world feel normal again? Look, Jimmy Fallon's in his suit behind his desk. That was interesting, that experiment we had to do. I don't think we're going to see a wholesale shift to the lower level production values. I think you're right, Brian. We're going to see animation maybe not increased, but elevated. So shows that might have been kicked to a lower tier cable network within like a Viacom CBS or a Disney will have a higher place on a broadcast network or a Disney Plus that they might not have had to kind of fill that schedule. But I think when those gaps come in, they're like, we've got to put something here. You're going to see live. You're going to see them pull out the stops and say, look, we haven't been able to use our full capabilities. Now we know the difference. Now we know what the advantages were to having a bigger set and a lot more text and people being able to work together in the same room. And we're going to do, I bet in this autumn, if things go well, we're going to see a lot of live productions from the big networks to fill those gaps in the schedule.
Do you think there'll be some appreciation then? Is what you're saying?
Yeah, a little bit of appreciation, a little bit back to normal, and a little bit of, well, if we do it live, we can turn it around faster, right? Like that's something we can just put on without having to wait, for it to come together.
And that's actually a really good point, Tom, because the live musicals and so on, any kind of live event was already established in a pre-virus era, and they were prestige events. So if you could get anywhere close to that level of quality for a live event, then you have an audience that already associates that with high quality AAA primetime entertainment, and you much like live to tape or with podcasting, the moment you say it, the moment it's out, it's already done and out there. I think there's going to be a rubber band snap pretty quickly, but how soon? You think a month from now, 2 months?
Well, I mean, that's a bigger question, right?
Sure.
As far as the CDC says, not before May.
Well, but all of a sudden, it makes me realize that Hollywood, as a well-heeled, moneyed interest who has lobbyists, who has lawyers, might suddenly be weighing in on when that social distancing ends. So for the little guys like us, because this is our opportunity as independent podcasters and broadcasters to up our game and try to, like, hey, late night television, if you don't want to show up and put on the big show, then we will. We'll do it. So weirdly, like at this very moment, this broadcast looks more upscale and pro than a bunch of the late night talk programs. Now, that's partly by design to, speak to where we're at in the times, but that's also an opening when it comes to the little guys to up their game and look like the pros.
Yeah, I don't think the media companies want to open themselves up to the criticism of pushing to come back too soon. But if the prevailing mood starts to be like, I think we're okay, they might get on board. So I'm not expecting them to do any lobbying efforts countervailing that public perception. But I do think they will need to take time, even if you do a live show like a Peter Pan or something, they're going to have to start planning that now and start doing table reads now, over Skype and all of that sort of thing, so that once they can hit the ground running, they can put it together fast. So let's say we're back to work in June. All right. Just to be conservative, you probably wouldn't see the first of those efforts come until September, October.
Dan Wally in the chat has a really interesting take, and I think he meant it as a joke. He said, I think this will bring back canned laughter in audiences in a big way. I think that is the biggest thing they're bumping up against is we as human beings crave that social proof that comes with laughter. It's a reason that we trust 5-star Yelp reviews or the laughter of a live audience or whatever. We want to know that we want to make it clear what's funny and how good it is at every single moment. There it is. Thank you. Thank you. Our live audience is chiming in. You guys are the best.
Yeah, because it validates your opinion, doesn't it? Like, hearing your laughter, it's like, oh, it's okay to laugh at that. That is funny. That was me growing up on Married with Children throughout my childhood. So Thank you.
I don't know if it's Bryce or Tom doing this, but I want it to never end. I want it to be how the show goes from now on.
I was trying to figure out who's doing this too. Like, wait a minute.
What, Bryce? Not me. Is it you? I don't know. Hey, folks, if you want to keep the laughter going and the applause coming, you got to support us at patreon.com/Cordkillers if you can. That is the way Brian and I make our livelihood and pay for Bryce and pay for the entire thing to happen. So if you can spare it, and only if you can spare it, and you can kick $1 our way, we certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, man, and you will get value for that $1. Not only will we show up loud, live, and independent every single week, but you get a single special feed with all of our broadcasts all on there, so you can listen to them all at once, including our special After Talk, which is for patrons only, in a time where everybody's trying to go loud, live, and independent. Why don't you support the people who were there before you? This whole thing was even a fad.
Patreon.com/Cordkillers. All right, let's talk about how to watch.
They laughed at that. I don't know.
Folks, remember when one of the ways we used to watch things was in a theater? Well, let's check in on how theaters are doing. Korea's approach to dealing with the virus has involved aggressive tracking and testing, meaning that its social distancing rules are less severe. That means its theaters have been allowed to stay open. But that doesn't mean Koreans have felt like going to the movies much right now. It's one thing to say our theaters can remain open. It's another thing for people to say, yeah, I'll go sit in a big room with a bunch of other people right now. For example, the movie Judy, which is older here in the US, but it was opening in Korea this week, brought in 41,000 admissions over 5 days. And it was the top attended movie for the week. By comparison, if you're like, well, wait, how big is Korea? The box office draw at the top this time of year last year was a crime drama called Money, which brought in 1.54 million admissions.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So quite a large number of people did not go to see movies, even though the theaters are open. And in fact, that led Korean theater chain CJCGV to shut down 35 of its complexes nationwide and reduce the screenings at the rest of its theaters. In China, 500 theaters had opened up the previous weekend, but then they shut back down March 27th. Even when they were open, the crowds were small. And here in the United States, of course, AMC Theaters furloughed more than 600 corporate employees, affecting all workers, including the CEO. And a U.S. stimulus package is providing loan guarantees to theaters to get them through the next 4 months. So we've got having to furlough your employees. We've got having to take loans to bridge the gap. We've got people not necessarily even feeling comfortable getting back to the theater right away once they are open. Theaters, Brian, how do we feel about them surviving this?
And again, this is a bit of my theatrical magician background. There are certain things that as animals we desire, and one of them is coming together. You know, just like we desire that social proof, we desire to gather in large groups, and part of it is a very primal, I don't want to say only sexual, but there's a courtship sexual component to it, to being out among other people. On one hand, think it is ridiculous for the government to be bailing out movie houses, giant buildings that are big empty rooms where people gather together to watch a movie together. I don't see the point of it since everyone can download it at home. But from the human angle, I see nothing more important than that, than us gathering together almost as a secular religious experience where we have the shared myths and legends of the Avengers to gather around. So I suspect that our hunger to gather will mean, A, it's probably a good investment to keep those businesses afloat. What I don't know is what is going to be the tipping point, at which point we all go back to the movie theater. And are we going to wait for an age where COVID testing is ubiquitous and cheap, and then allow premium seats for those who proved immune or not having it?
Germany's talking about giving a certificate to people who have the antibody test that is out now that says you had it and you're over it. But
of all the countries to be pulling that, I don't know that Germany has the high horse on that one. But yes,
it's not about a high horse. It's just saying they're saying we can certify people that they are safe to go back to work.
Yes.
So that would have a certificate that would then be able to be showed in other situations once you have it.
Sure. But my point is, I suspect that our hunger is very great to go back to the movies. I suspect it'll happen sooner, probably sooner than epidemiologists would like. And I think that it will be forever. We're never going to stop gathering together in physical form.
Okay, but Lamarr, I want you to weigh in on this too, because I know you got an opinion. But the problem here is that theaters are barely surviving as it is, right? And this is going to potentially make, even if it's fewer people, that small number of people that were going to theaters be less likely to go to them.
Yeah. It's my turn. Hi. So first to Brian, I must not be human because I don't feel any of these sexual, all that stuff you're talking about. I'm good alone. So, and that's sad. I get it. It's sad. But I have no emotion towards theaters and the gathering together. Here's one of the reasons I'm spoiled, right? I just got a 82-inch 8K TV, completely overkill, but I'm good. I can watch what I want. I can play what I want, and I can feel like I'm in a theater setting. I suspect that there are many out there like me. Maybe they don't have that big of a TV, but just don't want to be bothered with that experience. Even before this, I will go to premieres because I'm in LA. But if the choice is to wait a few months to see it in the comfort of my own home, I'm going to do it because it's still new to me. If I haven't, been spoiled by it. So I don't know. I'm a little bit. I don't want to say I want them to burn. I think they have a place, but I have no remorse. Like I heard about the bailout, the 4-month bailout they get, and I'm just like, why?
Let's call it a loan guarantee because bailout implies that they were just given money, and I think there's plenty of reasons to disagree with it, but it does give a misimpression. Loan guarantee means if they default on the loan, the government makes up the goods. So there is I think that's important to note that distinction there.
Okay. Yeah, I know some of those loans they won't have to pay back. So it's pretty much like free money. But listen, Brian made good points about the togetherness. I was being a little silly. Yeah, obviously I know people like to gather together, and I do too.
But yours is the prevailing opinion on the internet right now. I mean, the day of the introvert is here. Congratulations, shut-ins. Yeah, you guys are in charge of the universe right now.
Oh, we're winning. We're winning. and we're here to stay. Like I know it sounds. I don't want to sound terrible, but like the last couple of weeks for me has been, I have some friends who are really anxiety prone. So they're really, really struggling. Working from home since 2006 by myself and being an only child and, all of those components, not married, like I'm good right now. Now ask me 3 months from now, when it gets worse, I don't know. Or, if it gets worse, but right now I'm fine. I'm doing what I normally do, except that I can't go to a grocery store quicker. That's about it.
So we had a conversation, I believe it was last week. We were talking about the prevalence of day and date releases where a bunch of stuff that is either pushing back their theatrical release or, just going straight to Netflix. I assume you're on team just more of that all the time.
Yeah. So I actually, just to support it, I downloaded or I bought the Invisible Man. Just haven't seen it yet. I've been really busy. But I bought that day. They came out, $19. Here, this is interesting because I don't remember what year this was, but years ago when Mark Cuban owned HDNet and that whole thing.
Was really popular,
had his blog. He had an article in his blog because I followed it religiously because I really like him at the time. But he had a proposal that for day and releases, he proposed. And hear me out first because it sounds crazy. He proposed like let's say Wonder Woman comes out tomorrow, you can get it at home for $50. Okay, $50, and obviously as many people as you want to get in the house to see it. Every day after that, the price will go down. Maybe Saturday it'll be $45, then Sunday $40. So it'll progressively go down. If you just have to see it the day of, you pay a premium. And I think for some families that is a deal. I don't have kids myself, but I can just do the math. A few people, and some snacks, you've exceeded $50 already. So I'm seeing a lot of these companies experiment with that now, and I'm very pleased to see that. I want to see more of those experiments, and I want us to support them.
This is where my anarcho-libertarian takes over, and I want to go even more insane. It's like, no, you limit it, and you have an auction. They go for $300 a pop, and whoever can afford it pays it. Then you get perfect market efficiency. But my guess is that wouldn't be popular.
I mean, we're not going to see that because the theaters are so dogmatic about the 90-day window, and they are just going to be. I've come to the decision over the course of the last couple of weeks that they are going to be even more dogmatic about the 90-day window once people are allowed to go back to the theaters because their life is on the line.
Why do they have so much power, though?
They don't because it's that or nothing, right? Like if you still see companies making hundreds of $millions off of movies in the theaters. If the theaters say, we're not going to show your movie, that's leaving a lot of money on the table. So that, companies have tried, Netflix is the biggest of them, to say like, well, what if we just bring it straight to streaming? And the math doesn't work out yet. So the theaters know, like, you need us still. The question is, will they lose some of that leverage, like you say, Lamarr, if people aren't returning to the theaters after all this and say, I want that communal experience Brian was talking about, but I'm going to get it in a different way. I'm going to go to a sporting event or a magic show or something else, right? Like, that's the unknown. And if and so the theaters are going to want to make it so that people have to come back. See Mulan, see Wonder Woman 1984 in the theater and bring people back. And so even if it's reasonable to say, come on, how much are you going to lose if the price is $300 on day one? Like, those are people who would not go to the theater anyway. They're just unreasonably not going to allow that. It's just a blanket ban. So you're not going to see those kinds of solutions.
But I just think, lastly, fear is going to keep them in trouble for the next year. It's just no way around it. I know people are itching to go back to some normalcy. You see people on parks and things like that. Some people define orders or whatever, but just the fear of the unknown. We don't have a cure yet or a vaccine or anything. I just don't see them recovering in the next 12 to 18 months successfully. So I think this is the window where those companies are going to be able to Universal is going to be able to throw a movie out and bypass them. And it might start working. The numbers don't work out yet. I agree with you, especially on Disney Plus. They can't recoup $100 million on a Marvel movie on Disney Plus, not yet. But what if it's half of that? What if it gets to a point where it's 30%, 40% of it? It might be something for them to look at.
All right, folks, let us know what you think. Cordkillers@gmail.com. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location.
Under Surveillance.
There's a new Rick and Morty short out, made by Japanese Studio Dean, called Samurai and Shogun. It's mostly a samurai battle of Ricks slashing each other up, lots of bleeding. Still no word on when the rest of the current season will release, though.
Did you watch all of this, Tom?
Yeah, I did. It was a fun little experimental short. I enjoyed it.
I found it extremely enlightening because on paper, like if you have no audio and are just sort of watching, it looks an awful lot like a Rick and Morty episode. It's got everyone on model. He uses CGI instead of hand-drawn cells or whatever. But you've got a Rick, you got a Morty, you got other Ricks trying to get him or whatever. But man, oh man, did it highlight for me just how the star of the show is the writing, because I just showed Rick and Morty to my 12-year-old who can handle a little more darkness than my 16-year-old. She loved it. We watched 4 or 5 episodes last night and we're cackling the whole time. Absent that writing, even though the action sequences were amazing, it was stylistically, in the vein of traditional anime or whatever. It just made me realize that the star of the show is the writing and not any of the character or the drawings or any of that stuff.
I have not seen it.
That's kind of why I said it's a cool experimental thing. I think you put into words what I hadn't been able to figure out yet, which is it's fun to watch. It's very well done, but it's not really Rick and Morty because of the writing. You're right.
Yeah, well, and that's not meant in any way to disparage. Everybody should watch this, and it's delightful.
Of course, yeah.
And it's people bringing their talents to the table for the over the top gore and samurai action. But ooh, you don't know what you love until you don't have it.
Till it's gone. Yeah. Disney released The Call of the Wild, starring Harrison Ford, to digital on March 27th for $14.99. Most of these things we've seen are $19.99. This one's $14.99. Downhill, starring Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, also released the same day. That one is going for $9.99. Now, the significant part of this is we've been seeing a lot of these releases from movies that had been in the theaters. And their theater run got cut short when the theaters closed. And so the studios are saying, hey, we're going to break the 90-day window because what are you going to do? You can't even be open. And you're not going to open before the window's really, worthless anyway. We'll have other things to put out then. So we're going to put this out. The Downhill, starring Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, as far as I could tell, only showed at Sundance. And that got released for $9.99. So that was one where they're like, we weren't going to make that much money off of it in the theaters. Anyways, I don't know. To your point, Lamarr, you may see movies like that in the future decide like, you know what, maybe we will just go straight to digital.
I think they had a $9 million budget for that, close to. So I had never heard of this until I saw it in the lineup. I looked it up and I was like, well, it's Will Ferrell for $10. I'll watch Will Ferrell. I like him. So
that's actually a really good point because there are so many movies that have maybe a $7 million production budget, but then they spend $60 million on marketing, and that's what they have a difficult time recouping. But in this case, if they're sort of like you mentioned, you hadn't even heard of it. If they're skipping the marketing phase, some actuary somewhere says, you know what, price is super cheap. We can make our money back instantly.
And if there are fewer theaters, if more theaters go under, get closed in the future, then there's, fewer options to put things on screens, which puts a little more pressure on these lower budget movies to go to digital. So I think that might be something.
I never want the theaters to close.
He says with steepled fingers.
Wonder Woman 1984, I mentioned earlier, will no longer open June 4th. It's been rescheduled to open August 14th. A couple other notes here. Lin-Manuel Miranda's musical In the Heights has been taken off the schedule for the time being. It's not going to come out. They just don't know when. And Christopher Nolan's Tenet holding strong, still on the schedule for July 17th.
The Lin-Manuel Miranda is a good call because musicals tend to be kind of bulletproof. They're not necessarily timely. I can see them pushing that back to a Christmas release, and my daughter will be super jazzed about that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think I may be wrong about this. I think there was also a few things they needed to finish shooting, like pickup type shots too. So that might have played into it as well.
Yeah. I feel bad for Wonder Woman because it's been delayed. It wasn't supposed to come out last year. And they kind of pushed it. So,
is that right?
Was it supposed to be a winter release? Yeah.
At least my understanding. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it's been pushed around a little bit. So August is a good time. I think people will be kind of coming out of their caves, to see the most perfect movie in the world. Nothing's better than Wonder Woman.
All right, a few other notes here. Classic episodes of One Day at a Time now available to stream for free on Pluto TV. And if you're like, what about the new One Day at a Time? The former Netflix show debuted on Pop TV March 24th. Season 4 is on Viacom CBS's Pop TV. It's also being simulcast on TV Land. eNASCAR Pro Racing, which has NASCAR drivers playing video game versions of racing games, was such a success last week that Fox Sports says it's going to broadcast the rest of the series on its networks.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right. Like
that's unheard of. People are really desperate for content, but
I'll watch Belarusian football, I'll watch Korean inter-squad baseball games, and I'll watch video game NASCAR. That's where
I'll tell you what. I think this is a smart play because we're not exactly back in bars yet. But tell me out of the corner of your eye, if you're sitting at a bar, that you wouldn't just assume this is an actual NASCAR race. It's going to fulfill 90% of the visual noise desire that you have. And the reason I mention this is because I took my wife out, and for like 2 hours I was glancing over her shoulder at the soccer game in the background, and it took me a full 90 minutes before I realized they were playing FIFA on EA. It was unreal. It was good enough. It got you most of the way there.
There was on Fox Sunday, March 29th, Elton John hosted Fox Presents the iHeart Living Room Concert for America. That was the name of the thing. Wow. It is now being made available on iHeartRadio's YouTube channel for free. That will last through Wednesday, April 1st. It includes Alicia Keys, Billie Eilish, Backstreet Boys, Dave Grohl, Camille Cabello, Mariah Carey, Tim McGraw, a bunch more that I won't butcher their pronunciations, but all performing from their homes. Netflix has approved a new series from Marie Kondo to be called Sparking Joy with Marie Kondo. They're also renewing Love is Blind to the Circle for 2 seasons more each, and 1 more season of the hip-hop competition show Rhythm and Flow. Netflix also approved a 2nd season of Lock and Key. No date announced on that. Of course, we don't even know when it can go back into production. And eating up the internet right now is John Krasinski in his own YouTube series called Some Good News, trying to share stories of good things happening. In the first episode, he chatted with Steve Carell about their time together on The Office and talked about a 15-year-old cancer survivor who was cheered by her entire neighborhood on her return from the hospital.
It's brilliant.
I didn't know that was a series. I just thought he was just on his YouTube channel.
He's done 1 and he intends to do more. So
yes,
I'm using the term loosely.
It turns out the moment you do anything and the whole world loves it, it becomes a series.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Gotcha.
So yeah, maybe he's going to do more, maybe not. I don't know. It's a good point. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. One thing filling your eyeballs lately, Lamarr. What do you want to talk about?
So I've moved the last couple of weeks, so my most of my days have been filled up just getting the house together, blah blah. But I sat down and finally saw Frozen 2 on Disney Plus actually a couple of days ago. And first of all, it's beautiful, and it was such a I really enjoyed it. Not as great as the first one, of course, from 7 years ago, but it was a fantastic movie. So I watched that. I've been catching up on Hulu because I have Hulu Live TV now, so I'm able to get the recent episodes of Ancient Aliens. Again, the best show on the. Yeah, I'm sorry. I believe everything they say. It's ridiculous. It is the epitome of reality TV gone awry, and I believe everything of it. So it's amazing. And this Steelbook, I asked them for it because this is my favorite movie in the world. Like, seriously, Tommy Boy. I've seen it at least 50 times. So I've watched that a couple times already.
Nice.
So that's what I've been watching. Yeah.
Excellent. Brian, what about you?
Man, oh man, I watched that Tiger King, which, spoiler alert, Tom, you were not even able to finish, the first 2 episodes of?
No, I didn't finish the first episode.
Wow. You probably felt like the only person in the world who wasn't in love with Tiger King, but it turns out my wife was the exact same way. She I think watched all of 1 episode, started the second, was just like, I can't. I can't. And so she stopped it. But meanwhile, I loved it and watched the entire thing this week. Bryce,
you are typical of the human race right now. Like, everybody loves this thing.
Well, I've never heard of it.
Wait, you haven't heard? Wait, for reals?
I don't know what this is. Yeah,
you haven't heard the good word. I have good news for you, my friend. Tiger King is
knocking on my door. Okay.
I believe by some metrics the #1 television show in the country right now.
Probably.
It's remarkable.
It's a Netflix documentary series, so people know where to find it. It's like 7 episodes, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it starts off bonkers and goes crazy from there. Bryce, I guess non-spoilery. What did you think?
I thought it was great. I love messy drama, and this had a lot of it.
It's very messy, very drama.
Very messy. I think the last 2 we talked about this off air. I think the last 2 episodes are maybe a little soft because it kind of it gets where it's going, but that's only because the 5 before it are explosive. And there's every
single episode outdoes the one before it for 5 episodes straight. Yeah. So you start off with, hey, it's a crazy world, the world of big cat owners. And that's episode 1. And you're like, yeah, that's a pretty crazy world. Every single episode outdoes itself from there.
Yeah.
Would it be fair to call it a true crime documentary series?
Yeah. As true crime as The Making of a Murderer is. So, which is to say, everything is seen through the lens of the documentarian who is choosing to shape the narrative, but it's all based, it's all real everything's.
Yeah. There is even an episode, the funniest conceptual episode is one that is just a completely separate true crime story about not the main focus of the documentary. It's so good.
There's at the end of the second episode, I think I can speak non-spoilery. At the end of the second episode, somebody casually says, anyway, this other big cat owner straight up murdered their spouse and fed them to their cats. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? And then the third episode is like, let's just do an hour-long true crime documentary in which you end it thinking, oh, they definitely murdered their spouse and fed them to their cats.
They did. They had to.
Okay, I got it.
Where are the bones? Anyway, Tiger King on Netflix.
What about you, Tom? What have you been watching?
Not that. Just to round that point out, not my thing. I just didn't like anything about it. It felt exploitative to me and not something that made me feel better about the world. And yet I totally understand why people are loving it, because it just distracts you from everything. So just not my thing. I highly recommend people try it and check it out, because so many people are deriving joy from it. I am deriving joy from the Fast and Furious movies. It has now become a weekly tradition for Eileen and I to sit down and watch the next Fast and Furious movie in the series. This week we watched Fast 5, and it's beautiful. I know that it's a cultural phenomenon that people love. I'm enjoying like unfolding the characters that get introduced or do things to go like, oh, that's why people were excited when he was in that movie. Oh, that's why they make that joke about it. It's like a cultural literacy course to watch these movies. And they have great races and have become in these later movies, great heist movies as well.
Aren't there basically superhero movies at this point?
I mean, they're kind of getting there. Right now, they're going from heist. But yes, I did see Hobbs and Shaw. That had been the only Fast and Furious movie I'd seen before we started watching them in order.
I haven't seen that yet.
And that is certainly a very superhero type movie.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah. In fact, Idris Elba's character calls himself Black Superman in it. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, I am really enjoying watching the evolution of a, I guess, fairly predictable but interesting racing movie in Fast and Furious through all of its evolutions into becoming these heisty superhero movies. Also because I am missing baseball. Baseball should be back already. I have been watching the KBO Korean Inter-Squad games live on YouTube. And I'm also on Scott Johnson's recommendation watching the baseball documentary series, which PBS has made available for free. Even if you're not a supporter of PBS, you can pop into it in the United States, of course, and watch it on the PBS app. So that is what I have been watching.
Hey.
Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, this weekend, a friend of mine alerted me to a new Twitch channel, and it reminded me how much of content on Twitch is not a live stream. So my friend sent me to user Iron Chef _episodes, which only plays the 90s Food Network English dub of Iron Chef Japan, randomized nonstop. It's great, by the way. If you haven't seen it, it's great. Especially like,
man, I used to watch these on TV. That's great.
Well, and going back and like, for as innovative as this would have been in the mid to late 90s, like all of the things that it is missing from the various innovations since then. Anyway, it's great. But my tip for finding other streams like this is to look for the always on category or the always on game. There's some stuff in there, as well as streams that use the marathon tag. Some other well-known marathon streams include Rift Tracks and Bob Ross, though Bob Ross is only Fridays through Sundays now, I just found out. Twitch has also done some limited time always on streams on their Twitch Presents account. So I bet there will probably be some more stuff there. I know they were doing Pokemon as recently as February. So there's stuff on Twitch, and that's an easy, free way to watch stuff, even if you don't have an account and you're watching on like your PC or something. So
bring back Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. They shut down, or they didn't shut down, but Viacom or Fremantle, whoever, shut down Buzzer, which was the old game shows channel.
Yeah.
I really like that, but I think they haven't had that for a little while. So check out Twitch. Twitch.tv is the website. There's stuff there. If you've got something we should be on the lookout for, please send it in. Cordkillers@gmail.com.
Brian.
Yeah. Hey, man.
Do you have a thing to tell people about?
Doggone right. And when I say doggone, I'm talking about our friends over at Doghouse Systems. Look, man, everybody's all cozying up. You probably are thinking about how you want to upgrade your system. I know what you're thinking. Who's somebody that provides a good, solid gaming PC or value PC that Tom and Brian trust? We trust the folks over at Doghouse Systems. Head on over to doghousesystems.com/v/rogue. Use promo code ROGUE at checkout. Get a free SSD. And most importantly, support the people who supported this very fine establishment.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Lots of free streaming being offered out there. These are often just free previews that wouldn't have made many headlines in the past, but they're being pitched as like, hey, when you're stuck inside, watch our stuff for free. Sling TV offering its 45-channel Blue package free for 14 days until April 5th. Got to sign up before April 5th, but then you'll get 14 days free. CBS All Access offering a free month until April 23rd in connection with the series finale of Picard. Roku has lined up 20 partners to offer 30 days free through the Roku channel, including Showtime, Epix, Noggin, so big names like that, 20 of those. So lots of free trials out there right now if you're looking around.
Yeah, I'll tell you what is a trial for Tom Merritt is to deal with the fact that the Summer Olympics has been delayed until 2021, taking away one of the big promotional attractions for NBC's Peacock streaming service. Variety's surveys indicated Olympics coverage was Peacock's second most appealing feature after classic TV shows like Parks and Recs. Tom, how are you?
Yes, it's a free trial. I didn't have to pay anything to go through this trial. I wasn't thinking so much about myself, although I will miss the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics. You're right. But this was going to be Peacock's, two-prong attack, right? They were going to talk about some originals. They were going to hit the nostalgia button with Saturday Night Live and Parks and Rec, and they'll still do that. And then they're going to be like, and the Olympics, they're going to have 3 shows a day on Peacock. Why not try it out? It's free with ads. You don't need, et cetera. And now they're not going to have that. I don't really know how bad this is going to hit them, but it was going to be a thing that would make it almost impossible not to know it existed because everybody would be watching the Olympics. It is a big ratings hit.
If I were to make a guess, and I'll toss it to Lamarr on this, which do you think is greater? The downside of them not having the Olympics this year with that launch of the Peacock service, or the upside of the fact that by all indications, this is the hottest, most captured market for these over-the-top streaming services in the history of them.
Yeah, if they could market this right, I think the latter. I think they can take advantage of this upside. I mean, people are stuck at home. I wouldn't be surprised even if HBO Max tried to go a little early in their release as well. So yeah, I'm more positive on it. I think the latter, what you said, is probably where I'm thinking.
In fact, you know what? Now that you bring that up, remember that they were going to launch to Comcast customers April 15th and everybody else July 15th, right before the Olympics. I think they need to launch to everybody on April 15th now that they don't have the Olympics to trumpet this thing.
If they're ready, but we've seen rocky rollouts before, right? So I almost wonder if they're not, somebody behind the scenes isn't breathing a sigh of relief right now that they get to take a little bit more time.
Well, yeah, and I bet that person gets outvoted in a meeting at some point. We'll see. We'll see.
Fair enough.
Like, we need money. We need money now.
Yeah. I should disclose that my wife works for a company wholly owned by NBC, so their fortunes do affect my wife's fortunes. Data provided to Forbes from streaming analytics firm Antenna show that between March 14th and the 16th, the number of Disney Plus signups more than tripled compared to the same period of the week prior. The numbers may continue to spike since Monday's Disney Plus launched in the UK, Ireland, Germany, Spain, Italy, Switzerland, and Austria. HBO Now saw a 90% gain, Showtime a 78% gain. Netflix only got a 47% bump because everybody was already watching them already. And Apple TV just got a 10% bump. Antenna warns that HBO Now and Showtime tend to see the most churn because of the number of users who sign up for a free trial and then cancel. But no doubt, Brian, you're right. People are watching streaming video more now than ever.
I would like to point out the most extraordinary sentence you just said was Netflix only got a 47% bump.
Right?
Ficto.
I feel bad for Apple.
Ficto has launched a short video streaming service without a paywall, without Jeffrey Katzenberg's superstar lineup. Ficto offers interactive dramas, film and adaptations, comedies, documentaries, talk shows, game shows, and news with live chat, polling, and more. Average runtime for episodes is around 5 minutes. One of the big name shows is built around Niantic's game Ingress. Ficto pays creators based on how often their content is viewed. I feel like each of those individual sentences sounded like an over-the-top streaming service, a Twitch chat, and YouTube, all short-formed up in an Instagram format.
This is
TikTok.
Quibi without the star power.
I was gonna say this is not Quibi, but
Right,
Close.
but Quibi, have we talked much about the community chat side of Quibi? It didn't sound like there was much on that.
No, so you're right. It's Quibi without the star power, but trying to say, but we have chat.
Right, which I suspect is probably the smart way to go.
Maybe. I mean, I'm unsure anybody wants Quibi to begin with, but at least the star power will bring them in. I don't know how many people are going to go into Ficto just because it has chat that you can do on demand, right? I don't know.
It's
maybe,
free.
Maybe.
No paywall. Think about it. We could launch a 5-minute version of Cordkillers, complete with live chat or whatever. Like what if at the end of every Cordkillers we said, okay, what are the top stories? Let's do a 5-minute version of it. Like that would cost us virtually nothing, and we'd have no barriers to entry, and we would be rewarded based on our own performance. If it's something that the universe wanted, then we would get paid. If not, then we wouldn't, and we would give it up. All of that makes more sense to me than Quibi.
Does anybody want this though? I mean, you're making a great case for a creator to maybe try it, but not for anyone to watch it.
Let me put it this way: if there is a place for Quibi, there most certainly is a place for Kmart Quibi, and that's what this sounds like.
Is there a place for Quibi?
Is there a place
That's
for
my
Quibi?
question.
Right? No,
I feel bad because I have a friend who was working on a show. I think.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, right. So and they're working together actually. So yeah, it's on one hand, I don't. One of my best friends. I don't want the show to go away, but on the other hand, I'm Quibi. I have not been sold. I have not been sold on what this thing is. I don't know.
Let me just say, I'm sure Ficto will be great, but it will not have Rotten Tomatoes fresh daily on Quibi starting April.
Any disclosures you want to make, Tom?
No, I think I already made my disclosure. All right, let's talk about some dispatches from the front. Ryan, Wayne is not worried about HBO Max. He says, look, there's several versions of HBO already. I don't understand what the big deal is. So they create another channel or an app, call it HBO Max. Who cares? If it works, great. If not, oh well. Life will go on. And maybe they will change the service to some other name. And then included a name of all of the linear channels that you can get from HBO, HBO 2, HBO Comedy, HBO Family, HBO Latino, HBO Signature, HBO Zone, all of which have an East and a West version, depending on your provider. So I don't know, Brian, what do you think of this?
HBO Films, Max, Go, Now, Animation, read by HBO, and HBO On Demand. I think this is a pretty good counter-argument to my wailing about it. I can't tell if he's being sarcastic or not, because on the one hand, he's saying HBO is already a disaster with their branding, but also HBO seems to be fine despite already having been a disaster on their branding. And
although I don't think of these as the brand. The brand is HBO. And then when I tune to that section of my cable guide, I see, oh, these different things are on Signature. Oh, this is where all the comedies are. There is really just HBO Go and HBO Now when you're talking about online. But I guess there's the point, right? They already have two of those, depending on what your use case is. So
isn't Max supposed to be the one that destroys them all and it becomes one?
They're saying it because they're selling it for the same price as all the others.
Yeah,
but you get more.
Yes. That will be, if HBO is a Cadillac, then HBO Max will dominate both the Cadillac and the Twizzler market, because it's a Cadillac with a Twizzler that comes free. It's the dumbest thing ever. Sean the Lockdown Dad writes in saying that he was watching us and his 3-year-old son heard us say the word Netflix too many times, like the word Beetlejuice. We attracted the attention of his son, and he suddenly realized they weren't watching a cartoon, and because of our own subject matter, he insisted that they switch over immediately. But he was kind enough to let Sean the Lockdown Dad finish the Cordkillers episode first. Thank you very much.
Okay. What I love about your read of this, Brian, is you could tell you're a dad, because you're like, oh, the problem was we said that word too much. And if I were to read Sean's actual email, I would have to say that word a bunch. And I don't want to do that to Sean again. So I'm going to avoid saying that
word. Well played, sir. Lamarr, where can we see so much of your amazing stuff?
YouTube.com/Lamarr Wilson, where I mean, I'm doing quarantine content right now, so I've done some live shows. They did exceptionally well.
Oh my gosh, we're watching you unbox your ridiculously gigantic 8K television.
Big ass TV, yeah. It's crazy. I did it myself, which I do not recommend to do. You're supposed to have at least 10 people to lift up, but I'm,
one for each K.
Yeah, but yeah, it's gonna be a lot of really good entertaining content coming up. So yeah, you check me out there. Also on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow there. Really love being on here, guys. So thank you.
Man, great having you back. Appreciate it, man.
Yes.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack. Also carried on diamondclub.tv Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Talk to you again next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt.
Yes, Brian Brushwood.
Know who I love even more than my own children?
Your other children?
No, not my wife. I know what you're saying. I love our $5 patrons. These are the people that keep us loud, live, and independent. Thank you so much, $5 patrons.
You know what? I love them more than not life itself, because then I'd be dead and I couldn't appreciate them, but really, really, really close. And I'm so thankful that they are here to make this show happen.
Thank you so much to all of our $5 a month patrons. You guys are wizards. You're champions.
Thank you, everyone.
You're heroes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.